Hello everyone, I'm back with another video for you today, and I've got a Squirtle deck for you this time. I want to kind of run through the factions, but I haven't really played too much Skellige and Northern Realms, so it might be a bit late on bringing you decks for those factions. I probably will look at monsters again tomorrow, I think, and then maybe Skellige and Northern Realms after that. So stay tuned if you're not into these factions, if you're not a Squirtle, Syndicate, Nilfgaard, monster kind of person. There'll be something there for you in a bit, but I do want to also showcase some of the better decks, and I think Skellige and Northern Realms are probably on the weaker side at the moment, along with Monsters to a degree. Monsters has some pros that the other two factions don't, though. But yeah, for today, it's a Squirtle deck. This is a deck that I actually made with Green Knight, with a little bit of help from Pyrebol as well, and we made it a few weeks ago, but I think it's still quite strong, and I think it's strong now, and a bit different to the classic Elf Swarm deck. This is kind of an Elf deck, but it also runs a lot of Harmony cards. It also runs some pretty interesting packages in Novigradian Justice and Dwarves, and also the Poison cards, not just Dryad Rangers, but also Forest Whisperers, and of course Weeping Willow. So you're kind of sacrificing a little bit of power overall. You're not playing the Elf Leader, instead it's Call of Harmony, but you are able to pull out Feign Death and Great Oak with it. It's a 13 different category deck, so that allows the deck to be very flexible and always be finding all of your very important key cards. Also means you can trigger the scenario Feign Death straight away if you play your leader with Feign Death with an Elf at the same time, so you're not vulnerable to Bomb Heavers very much. And what that means is you don't have to play Redea in the deck, so your bronze units, you can utilize all the good bronzes that Squirtle has, and it does have quite a lot of them. So you're thinking things like Variehead Sappers, the Forest Whisperers, of course, the Rangers, the Marauders and whatnot, and you're really just trying to eke out as much value from not playing Redea as possible. You have the consistency in your leader, so you don't need the consistency. You also don't have to run Matter to draw your Feign Death. So there's a couple of pros that this deck has that the typical kind of Elf Swarmy deck doesn't. And of course you have more poisons to use, etc, etc. So overall I think it's a very strong deck. It can be not so good in mirror matches. If you're against elves, you're going to lack the power a bit. What you do to beat those guys is you have to kind of make sure that they're the one bleeding you, ideally, because they can't really go to a long round 3 because they have too many cards usually, they have too many units on the board, not enough space. You usually can fit everything because you don't have that Elf Leader with 3 charges. So usually if you can get them to be the one bleeding you, and then you can maybe outplay and overcommit a little bit less than they do, and then win the game as a result. But that's definitely a hard matchup. Otherwise though, you have a bit more kind of general ability to answer a lot of decks, I think. You still get kind of crushed by Tin Boy and Syndicate, which is something that a fair amount of people are playing, so be careful with that. But the poisons especially are very, very helpful, and just the harmony value in general, it allows you to play kind of 3 different packages, which I'll talk about now, that kind of allow you to win each round. So yeah, you have 3 packages. You have the Harmony package, you have Poison package, and you have the Elf package. That's how I like to look at the deck. And ideally, you want to use 1 package in each round. This is a deck that likes to bleed. It likes to really dump a load of tempo out in round 2 and push the opponent and force out some of their good cards, make them go cards down. And typically you want to use the Elf package to do that bleed, because it's the most powerful package you have in this deck. So that's, your Feign Death, your Venusiel, your Isengrim, your Yaevinn, maybe a half-elf or whatever. But really just these kind of high provision elf cards. They swarm the board, they get you a ton of points in a short amount of time, and then you're able to just overwhelm the opponent very quickly. The other packages work a bit differently. You have Poison, which is kind of reliant on, of course, the opponent playing some big units, and that's usually going to be useful in round 1 or round 3. Round 3, it can be fine to just play Poison and your leader to find another Poison to actually just instantly kill a unit, for example. That can be quite effective, especially if the opponent is playing something like Osrel in Last Say, or in one of the last plays they have, or some other big unit. Poison round 3 is usually quite a solid way to finish the game out, especially if you're a card or 2 up, because then you can use it without the opponent responding in time. But you can also just throw them out round 1 and win the round, make sure you're bleeding round 2 using that Poison round 1. Harmony, same sort of deal. The stuff like Percival and these just little Harmony cards that we have, the Hawk, the Rangers, etc., they kind of just work nicely too. secure the longish rounds, maybe round 1 or round 3 if you've already spent your other resources. So that's really how the deck plays. It's pretty straightforward. It's got a lot of cool packages, and I think it's very fun to play. It works slightly better against some things than the normal elf stuff, slightly worse against others. It's a bit of give and take. It might be a little bit worse overall for ladder, but that's for you to decide if you do end up playing it yourself. Anyway, let's jump into some games and see how it plays. Okay, first up going to be that elf mirror that I was talking about. Not so much a mirror match, but, you know, another Squirtle to deal with. So, Aileron we can get rid of, that's no issue at all. I do quite like actually playing Marauder alongside the Novigradian Justice. That can be a way to win round 1. Those are two kind of power plays, you know, you have an 11 and then effectively a 9 for 4p, so, or sorry, 8 is it? Yeah, 8. So that's pretty strong, we can maybe use that. Let's get rid of the support. This is usually just a mulligan target, not very good most of the time. Can be in certain situations okay, but not when you don't have that feigned death. And then I think we can get rid of the chariot. We're not really going to be doing much harmonizing this round, it looks like. So that won't be super useful. So he might be Harold Gord. I've seen a fair amount of that card being played. Haven't tried it out myself yet. But otherwise there'll just be some regular elves. So the key here is to not overcommit to round 1. We do play the Saber in order to trigger Harmony, by the way. And also to potentially pull out Aileron if we're getting pressured. Round 1, but usually just to trigger like a Percival or something without having to play an elf, because the deck doesn't have that many elves other than your kind of core elf package that you want to be using in very specific situations. So let's start with the dwarf. We can then choose to go into Novigradian Justice for a big point swing if we want. Alternatively, might just choose to kind of chill out. We'll see what this guy is playing, I suppose, shortly. Definitely want to get Waylay value this round. That's a card that can be quite awkward later on. And that looks like a pretty good target for Waylay. I could also just take the Purify, because we do have a Sapper in hand. And I think that's maybe the way to go here. Just to make sure this dwarf lives, because we do kind of want him to survive. We lose 1 point on the Vitality, but that's not the end of the world. And it's going to mean that if we do want to go with Justice, that'll be a much better play. We could have gone with it there, that's also another option, but getting Sapper value while we can seems like a good idea. We'll see where to go from here. Ideally, if we can get a Waylay on something. Yeah, on the half-elf, that looks like a good target for that. Now since we're on 7, we can also think about, you know, playing the Saber. Just having that pass open to us if we want to take it. As I said, we do want to kind of be being bled by the elf deck, which presumably he's playing. Because usually that's going to be the situation that you can outplay the opponent and get the value and win the game. They might end up overcommitting and bleeding you too much, which is where you can win. Otherwise it might be tricky. If we're the one having to bleed, then we might be in trouble. Well, equally, if we go to round 3 and play a long round, we might be a little bit behind in points in that round. Okay. So I think I'm just going to maybe play one more card. We could play the Runestone, for example. Try to find just another kind of, you know, not amazing card. I'm always happy to play the Justice if he kind of overcommits here. Looks like right now he's playing bad cards, so he might just give me the round. And, you know, I say we want to be bled, but we're also kind of happy to go to that, you know, to have control of the game, I should say. It's possible that we can burst ahead with elves and he'll be forced to kind of do awkward things, you know, maybe if we start killing his elves, then it can end up being quite nice for us. So I think Panther here looks quite good. Just the most points. We don't want to pull that Aileron out. Look at bleeding. Just get that ticking. Sapper wouldn't be enough to get him ahead, so I think that's fine. And ideally, if we are going to be the one being bled in round 2, we'd like to kind of shorten the time it takes to threaten taking the opponent's card from them. But it looks like the opponent's really not going to commit much here, so I think I'm going to take the pass now. Go into round 2 on 9 cards. If he believes he can win the long round, then we'll take it to him, and hopefully he'll be kind of row-locked. Either that, or we can maybe kill his elves using first say and gain an advantage that way. He definitely gets the round quite cheaply, but we didn't really use anything, so it's not too bad for us. So I think now we're going to get rid of the Marauder, of course, because we need to pull it with Justice. Now we have a Dryad with Isengrim's Council, although we probably want to get rid of Sappers here. He already played Poison. It's possible this will find the value and deny the Poison, but it's also possible that it won't be relevant. It might be more important to find another Poison ourselves, or to actually get another good card. For example, Oak. Orca support's not very good, but that's okay. So most likely he'll push us here because he knows he needs to not be kind of row-locked in round 3, so he needs to be on kind of 9, 8 cards maybe round 3, which means playing down to 6 or 5 this round. And usually what the elf deck will do is just push out those points in a similar way to how we can. Just get a ton of value on the board and you know, go from there. And that's what he's going to do, just committing Redea already. So we can probably just start slow and get some real nice value from our poison cards here, because that's a big chunky Redea on the board. And then we might not have to commit our kind of big Feign Death play with Call of Harmony. We might be able to take it really slowly and actually win with Dwarves and just poison and stuff. Depends how hard he goes in here. But this is what I'm talking about with, this is your win condition. You need to really kind of force the opponent to overcommit and take as much as you can from this, you know, poison and reactive play. I definitely like our position if this were an Oak. The Hawker support is quite awkward to play here because we're going to have to commit our leader to get any serious value from it. Most likely we'll end up, you know, being forced to play our leader at some point here. But we'll see how long that takes. So let's go with Forest Whisperer for now. Get that poison value. Make sure he doesn't play a Sapper or something. And then we'll see where he goes from here. So he's probably going to want to go kind of all in-ish. Once you obviously swarm with the Feign Death and Redea, you tend to want to, you know, push it and then get the Isengrim and Yavin value. So I suppose once we see some of his leader charges, we can then think about committing our leader and really also going in ourselves. But until then, it's a bit risky to use leader because the opponent can hold on to their leader value and just win with that in round 3. Also, a way you can play this is just to kind of chill, sit back, save the leader until the very end, and you maybe even go a card down or 2 and just hold on to your leader at all costs because it probably represents a very strong card. If we have Oak and you know, only 1 card less than the opponent, for example, then that won't be too big of a problem. Wow, this play is really quite bad from him. He lost a fair amount of points on the Truvial and the Waylay, so quite happy to see that. I think now we're going to go with, I guess he just really wants to get the elves on the board for whatever reason. So I think now we're probably just going to go with the Novigradian Justice. In this particular situation, we're probably going to play the Scenario on the back row to fill it up for Yavin. And that means we'll go on front with the Dwarves. Now, one thing to note is Justice does not proc Harmony, which is why I like to play the 2 Dwarves together. You know, you can, you know, play 1 Dwarf first, proc the Harmony, then play the Justice, and get the bonded value as well. It feels a bit bad to lose out on the Harmony value, but that's just the way of it, unfortunately. So we'll see what his next play is. Again, we're just kind of biding our time. We can even make another kind of relaxed play next, maybe a Half-Elf Hunter. Just kind of wait for him to give a bit more. We need to see a bit more before I'm willing to play my Feign Death and go, you know, crazy. And here it is. That's the leader from the opponent. He's going to Venusial and obviously deal quite a lot of damage to our board, which hurts, it's painful. It is painful. So now we're kind of, I think we're forced to commit our leader just because we don't have much power here, other than in the elves. And unfortunately we can't do Venusial on the front ourselves, but it does mean we get a bit more in terms of elf bodies from that ability. Let's go with the Feign Death now, on this back row. And we can probably play, we probably should play Venusial, right? I guess I should do some quick maths to work out how many cards will be needed. I think Venusial's fine, to be honest. We're going to have to play at some point this round anyway. Yeah, we're more than... We're very in range to kind of catch up here. Remember, he's always going to be at a disadvantage the more he keeps playing because, you know, every card he commits to this round, he's actually going to be effectively losing. I mean, he's one card down in this round is what I'm trying to say. Just by nature of bleeding rather than going to round 3. So I think Half-Elf Hunter time. We could also Yaven if we think this is the most value we'll get from it. And it probably won't get that much better. If at all. So I'm kind of happy with a Yaven here. Just because it's a higher tempo play, I can take out Isengrim and maybe deny him a little bit more value that he'd want to be getting on that. And then we'll kill a Neophyte because he's not worried about being board locked here. So we have our Isengrim play coming up. Now my hand is quite weak, this is what I'm talking about, like with no Oak, he might be able to just 2-0 me. I said if I had Oak, I'd be in quite a comfortable position here, but it might get a bit dicey, truth be told. We'll see, he might just decide, I think I've got enough from him at this point. He might have an awkward hand on his hand as well. Sorry, an awkward card. This is possible. And looks like we're just going to get the pass now, so it's going to be a pretty easy Isengrim play, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yes, that's enough points. By a large amount. I mean, 3 is not, maybe not super large. And this is kind of why I wanted to play this Yaven. I didn't do the maths, but I figured that maybe if I go with the half-elf, it might not have been enough. I don't know exactly if it would have been, but just worth keeping in mind. We really need to be able to catch up there. And we were able to. So in this round 3, now that all the elves shenanigans are out, in theory our deck should be a little bit favoured to win. Because we just have more raw power in our bronzes. Once the Redea and the combo is gone, then our deck in theory should be a bit better, but we'll see how that plays out. Let's get rid of support. And obviously we're looking for Oak, that would be really nice. Otherwise we might just be losing, you know, by not having good enough cards, which would be a shame. We probably want to get rid of a Dryad here because we can just pull the other one with Council if it's needed, and it might not be needed. And in this situation the Harmony is probably not worth it, so I'm going to mulligan the Ranger. We do draw Oak, so that's quite nice. Quite good that we got that. So we obviously want to start with our Harmony here, play the Half-Elf, and get things rolling. It's also quite nice that we're going first in this round. We're playing on front because of Forest Whisperer going on front, and we want to play around the Bowman that I also have in my deck. Quite important stuff. So we could just poison these. There's not really a huge downside to that. There might be a bigger unit coming, but we're probably not going to get to hit Oak with our poisons. To be honest, this might just get dealt with anyway by a Sapper. So we'll just throw it out, see if it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. He might have more Harmony that he wants to develop, so we might be interrupting that or disrupting that by trying to poison this immediately. And, you know, Chariot's not even too bad here. It's just giving us more bodies for Oak. A bit more damage on that. And being able to first play your Oak is sometimes quite a good thing because you're able to, you know, control the board a bit. So we could actually get rid of this little buff from the Marauder if we feel like that's worth it. I'm going to say it's probably not, and I'd rather just kill that unit with the Forest Whisperer here. Council obviously is really powerful in this deck because we have all 3 categories. So it's, you know, basically a 6 provision, pick any useful card in this moment, and usually you're going to use it to find a Dryad and find poison. Ends up being very good. So holding the Sappers ends up paying off here. We can actually just remove that poison from our unit. This is why we like playing double Sappers. It just really makes life awkward for decks that run maybe 3 poisons. You can deny 2 poisons and then they can't actually poison anything. It also gives you a way to answer defenders very reliably. And I mean, he's just got nothing left. Nothing left. He kind of spent everything in round 2, and we still have this little Harmony poison package which can clean up the round 3. So deck working as intended. Obviously if we don't draw Oak then we are a little bit disadvantaged here. We would have had quite a few less points, but you know, something like a Percival or a Hawk also wouldn't have been too bad. That being said, it looks like he has more poison, which is kind of a shame, but I think we'll just kill the dwarf here. Shouldn't really matter too much what we kill. Just going to kind of minimize the high strength unit in case of a random Igni or something. But we're not really losing to anything here. I'll take the win. So managing to beat out the Elf Swarm deck there, that's quite nice. Definitely going to be... oh, and it was Shaggy. He's quite high rank at the moment, I think. Yeah, pretty good game there. And let's jump into another one and see if we can win again. And next opponent going to be Second Wind. I've seen a lot of Second Wind, and I haven't tried it myself, and I do want to get some kind of deck out there, but back into it. What mulligans are we taking? Probably Aileron and Hawker Support. That's kind of the obvious two mulligan targets here. Normally you're kind of thinking about which package you want to use in which round, so maybe you would get rid of, you know, a card that's useful later, like the Dwarven Chariot, or one of the Dwarves maybe, if you don't have the Novigradian Justice to use with it, that kind of thing. But here, looks pretty good what we've got going on. We're going to have to probably lose Percival to a Stunning Blow, but we can start with it because he's not vulnerable to the boat pinging him for 1 damage, so that's okay. And doesn't really matter too much about placement. I guess we can go on back row just in case we end up pulling Oak with Leader, but that's rarely going to happen, so we don't need to worry too much about it, since we don't have Oak in hand. But, you know, you can always play as if you have it. Maybe trick the opponent into thinking that you are playing the card, or that you've drawn it. And I think we've got to move one of these boats, because 2 pings is just going to be way too much to deal with in this round. We definitely want to win the round against Skellige. That'll be very important here to be able to push him and bleed. Unlike the previous match, we do really care about, yeah, winning round 1 and pushing. So, Stunning Blow can still kill Percival. If he stays alive, then we've got a good chance here, I think, to win round 1. But it looks like he is going to die. Kind of to be expected. So this other longship we probably need to deal with. It's just going to be a bit too many points for him during the long round. So let's go with the... Ooh, yeah, doesn't really matter which way we do it. Probably the Weeping Willow, sorry, is the way. Get the poison value on that. Just don't want to have to deal with that engine too much. We could also have gone for a line where we maybe try to kill it with Yavin, but that's kind of a bit tricky and requiring us to play Feign Death. Which seems a bit committal. Alright, let's Issengrim's Council for the poison to finish the job. And to be honest, it probably actually makes sense to begin splitting our rows a little bit. We might be also scaring the opponent a little bit with the amount of points we have right now. Next play will probably be Half-Elf Hunter, and then that might even force a pass from them if they're really afraid of something like Venosil into Win on Even. So that's kind of ideal for us. In fact, Vrayhead Sappers looks a lot better here, because we still get that harmony value with the elf. If we want to play Half-Elf Hunter afterwards, we can as well. And this will just shut down that bleeding that we've been given and get us ahead. And on some level, we don't want to be winning on even here, because we might not want to commit our Yavin, our Issengrim, etc. So we're really just kind of piling on the pressure, and then at some point we're going to withdraw a little bit. And at that point is now, I think. Now we say, okay, you know what, that's fine. That's all good. I could get ahead here with the Dwarven Chariot, but then I kind of run out of steam anyway. So I think it's just better for me to go Half-Elf Hunter. I am going in with the mindset of, if I win this round, I will win the game. There's no doubt about it with my hand right now, because I can guarantee Feign Death into Venosa with Leader, swarm the board, go crazy in round 2, and just Skellige will fall apart if I do that. So, although this might seem like the wrong play or a weird play, I'm just kind of baiting the opponent into a pass now, because I don't want to commit these other cards. If he does stay, then there's the option to maybe get ahead on even again, but instead we're just going to take it with Dwarven Chariot. So kind of a perfect result for us here. Now we'd love to see just an Oak drawn. If we draw the Oak, we can kind of just smash him really hard in round 2 with the Elves and the Oak. And he's not going to be able to do much against that. If we don't draw it, then we can just save that for round 3, and we might have to take an earlier pass in this round 2, but, you know, it'll be okay. So we do draw Venosil, which means we have the option to... we could pull a different elf with our leader to, you know, instant activate the scenario. Alternatively, we can pull the Oak with the leader and just say that, you know, Bomb Heaver's a bit scary, but he won't have it. I think either way I'm going to mulligan one of these Dryads. We do draw Oak, So the kind of ballsy approach is to mulligan Venusial. I think that's just not a very good play here. However, it might be, actually. The one issue is the mulligan is a bit scary. I'm a bit worried about that because of Aileron. So we could just keep it, but one way or another we're kind of risking it. And this way, it doesn't feel very good because we're losing a bit of power overall, right? We can't pull our Novigradian Justice, but I'm really just kind of enabling as much burst as possible in as few cards as possible to, you know, really force him into an awkward situation. So that's what we're going to do. Feign Death first, and then Venusial with Leader, and we're probably only going to play 3 or 4 cards in this round. Just going on that back row, of course. And, you know, Wild Boar is a very scary card, so got to be wary of that. We're probably going to play the Yaven next, or Oak next. We can play either of those. Maybe Oak and then Yaven to guarantee that our board at the back here doesn't get full, because that can be quite risky. There's also the potential to sap us here, but I'm not sure I like that too much. That being said, it's either sappers or Oak. Maybe this is quite good actually. I like this play. Yes, we miss out on some waylay value, but I don't think that's the biggest deal. And it's going to mean we definitely don't, you know, run out of board space, unless I guess there's a Hammond from the opponent. Let me just get more sapper value. It's sometimes quite hard to find sapper value against Skellige, so we'll just take what we can get. And this is a very low tempo play. So I think we can just play the Isengrim now. Again, not going to go on that back row just yet, because we have only 2 more slots there, so we want Oak and Yaven to go in those positions. And we're going to play basically everything other than Forest Whisperer and just go in. It's going to be Decoction. So the opponent's playing like very, very slowly. Maybe it was correct for me to actually kill the Longship a turn earlier here, but now we'll go with the Oak, deal with it. And our Yaven will clean up something like a Greatsword or whatever if he's going to try play that for reach now. So he's 40 points down, that's just a huge amount. Really the only thing that will get there is some kind of Greatsword and dagger combination, but right now it looks like he doesn't have that. With that in mind, it actually does make some amount of sense to pass now before I even commit the Yaven. Either that or to just actually play Forest Whisperer and kind of make his life a bit awkward. Worth noting, he also doesn't have a good res target at the moment. I think he's relying on this Wild Boar of the Sea to catch him up, so I think I can do some calculations right now. If he has Dagger, how many points does he get? He plays 4, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 24 plus 4. 24 plus 4 is 28, so he'd actually be 2 points off if he has Dagger and then Wild Boar, so I think it's probably worth us passing here. If he would be able to get ahead with that play, then we'd maybe think about Yavening. But I think this is good. There's basically no way for him to catch up now. Honestly, to stick the knife in, we could just play that Yaven, but it's not a huge play. It's a 9. It will become bad next round, but I'm probably going to mulligan it anyway. Presents a pretty nice mulligan target. It might seem weird saving the Yaven here, but I think it's actually correct. It's all about bursting very quickly, so the opponent, you know, has to play like multiple cards to actually get out of this round. He's probably going to play every card in hand, if not Leader as well, to get out of here. And there's the second win coming in. Just for a Longship, you see what I mean? If we had played Yaven, then there's a very real chance he has some kind of Dagger into Wild Boar combo that actually catches him up, and then in that case we might just be losing the advantage that we gained in this round. So obviously finding the pass is very important, but you can see that we just have so many points that we've just completely disrupted and destroyed his deck here, right? He has to play his scenario as well. Like, this is just awful, awful, awful situation to be in as a Skellige. And that's what I was talking about in round 1, where we say, as long as we win this round, we always win the game, so it's worth it to, you know, make some kind of play that seems a bit weird or wacky. Let's get rid of Bowman. Funnily enough, Yaven's still a better card than Bowman because it counts himself. And then I guess we can just mulligan one of these Dryads. We don't need all that poison. We have double last say anyway, so... So now we don't have the best hand. We've used a lot of the deck's power already. But we have the double card advantage, and that's going to be enough to make our poison units very strong. Okay, so let's maybe play Runestone first in case we get a... it's not going to matter, he taps out. Bit unfortunate that he did also have to play Scenario in that last round, but realistically that was kind of to be expected. So that kind of shows the power of the deck. You can definitely win against other Scoia'taels, and you can definitely win against their field with this deck. It's very, very strong and very fun in my opinion. One of my favourite decks to play at the moment, even if it is, you know, Scoia'tael broken meta deck, blah blah, whatever people will say, I'm sure, in the comments. Either way, hope that was some fun gameplay and maybe informative as well. Have a great day, guys, and I'll see you next time.